Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Dave Chalmers, Chief Commercial Officer at LMN. Excited to be working with one of our trusted partners, BTA and Benji Carlson. Before I introduce Benji, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. The first is if you have any questions throughout the course of the presentation, please use your chat window and we will make sure that Benji gets access to your question. There will be a couple of polls throughout this presentation as well, so we're going to try and make it as interactive as possible. And from a note-taking perspective, we're going to make sure that everybody has a copy of the recording as well as all of the resources that Benji is going to share with us today. So welcome, Benji Carlson. Little introduction for everybody here on today's webinar. Benji is Breakthrough Academy's assessment specialist, and he has the unique opportunity to speak with hundreds of contractors all across North America every single year, has a ton of insights into operations and best practices. Today, obviously, we're going to be talking about staff, but Benji's role at Breakthrough Academy is essentially to do the assessment. How are those businesses managing their go-to-market today? And then prescribe practical, no-nonsense solutions to set them up for success. So Benji is one of our repeat webinar speakers, and always a great pleasure to work with you, Benji. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us here today. Really looking forward to learning as much as we can from your session.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. It's good to be back. I'm looking forward to the next hour here. We've got a lot of really awesome information to share here. So I'll hop right into it here. For those of you that have been on one of our webinars before, welcome back. If this is your first one, I think it helps to have a little bit of context around who we are, who LMN is, why we kind of do this stuff together. So I'll just read these two things out. Breakthrough Academy is the industry leader in coaching and consulting for the landscaping industry. We help achieve major growth for our members through the implementation of scalable systems, expert coaches, and a high-performance community. So, like that quick blurb says, like, we are a business coaching program. We're very, very focused on the contracting space, and landscapers make up a huge part of that. We probably have 40 some odd landscaping businesses in the program that we coach right now. LMN, as probably a lot of you know, is the #1 business management software company in North America for landscape and snow removal companies. So we have a bit of a partnership set up. Funny enough, one of the first things that we do when we start working with a landscaping business, if they've not got LMN set up, is we pretty much force them to get it, because it's such a powerful tool, very, very intuitive, super robust, and it's just a total no-brainer for any landscape business, no matter what stage they're at. So sometimes they've got it already, which is a good sign, and if they don't, it's one of the first things we do in our coaching is get them to adopt that tool. So we do these sessions together, as well as a few other sort of joint venture type things, and yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing some stuff today, specifically around increasing staff productivity. So this is sort of a timely session, right? We're, what is it, June the 11th, I believe. We're kind of getting into that part of the summer quite soon where the excitement and vigor that maybe your team had when they started is fading, and it's important to stay on top of your crews to make sure that they're driving to perform fit, complete jobs, maintain really high quality standards. And we've always found that as the days get longer and hotter, that is something that takes extra intention and extra effort from the owners of landscape businesses. So Dave gave me a bit of an intro. I do all the assessments with Breakthrough Academy, so I'm the person that brings companies in, and as a result, I get to listen to contractors like all the time about what it is that they're challenged by and what they need as a company. So there's a lot of just I've got kind of a wide perspective, having done this for a few years now, and you start to see patterns or trends, and this staff productivity one is certainly one of them I've picked up on. It seems to be sort of a universal challenge, and we at BT at Breakthrough Academy have come up with just some really practical solutions around that. So that's kind of what today is about. Before we get into the actual content of today's session, I'll give you a few pieces of advice for how to get the most out of this for you individually. Focus on a few gold nuggets. We always cover a wide range of ideas and tools and concepts in these sessions, and it's never my expectation that you like take absolutely everything and implement all of it right away. I'd rather you just kind of listen for those small ideas that are quick to implement and make a big difference to you. Share from your experience and engage with the material. As Dave mentioned, we've got the chat box open. I'll be checking it intermittently, or probably Dave or Lisa will like feed me questions if they come in. So yeah, if you've got a comment or something's unclear, you don't need to wait till the end. Go ahead and ask at any time. Use the templates means we're going to be giving away some tools. I know a lot of webinars come with sort of free downloads and resources. This one is no different. There will also be another thing that I'm going to offer at the end of this. I'll mention in a sec, but we've in this session specifically, there's a really awesome, training checklist template for your landscapers, sort of a conflict management model. There's a sample employment agreement. There's a few things that we've written and developed over the years that we're just giving away as a freebie. The other thing that we're doing on this session in particular is offering free strategy sessions. So that's a 30-minute call with me. And I will be talking a little bit more about what those are about as we go throughout this session. Lastly, look for how all these concepts are linked. You will see how the bits and pieces and the tools and the ideas we share are very cohesive. They're not sort of random scattered ideas. And that seems kind of abstract right now. I think as we go through each slide, that will make more and more sense. So the purpose and outcomes for today are pretty simple. The purpose is to help you identify why your staff may be underperforming and give you the tools to correct it. And the outcomes are that you understand the performance gap and how to apply it to your staff, and you leave with Breakthrough Academy resources to assist you in driving performance with your team. So it's pretty straightforward. Our agenda is, first we'll talk about this performance gap idea. What do we mean by that? How do you use it to understand what your employees need? Once you've identified or diagnosed the gap, we'll then talk about increasing commitment or increasing skill, which in my opinion are the two most common reasons people aren't working as quickly or as efficiently as you think they ought to. It's actually it's 99% of the time it's one of these two things. And I'll break that down in a little more depth soon. Lastly, we'll just do a quick recap. We'll transfer out. We're going to be launching polls at different sections of this webinar, so please be ready to answer those. So that's the plan for today. So here's our transfer in. I want to hear from you guys and think about your time owning and running a landscaping company. The employees you've had, the crews you've run, the jobs you've been on, and reflect back on that. What are some of the reasons you think your staff aren't as productive as they could be? So if that's going on for you right now, think about that in the present tense. If that's something you've had challenges with in the past, reflect on that. I believe Lisa's going to launch a poll here in a sec. So if you guys can just think through that, take a sec and give me a reason why you think that is. Is it really poor job site planning? Is it their work ethic isn't very high? Do they lack industry experience or training? In a lot of instances, maybe they've just got improper equipment and tools. I've certainly seen that. What's the reason in your mind why people are slow? So I'll give you guys a few more seconds to fill that out. These are anonymous, so just click one of the answers that applies to you, and that'll just kind of help me know what your specific pain points are. Work ethic, cool. That's what today is going to be about. So it looks like, yeah, we've got 50% we're answering the work ethic thing, and then the other two are a mix between planning and lack of industry experience. So both of those things are going to come up today. I mentioned a few minutes ago, like just sort of what BTA is and who we are and what we do. We work right now with about 315 companies all over North America, and because of that, we're able to observe some pretty common challenges, things that seem to come up a lot. You know, this is doesn't matter geography or how big the business is. It just seems that these issues seems to crop up quite a lot. So the first thing is there's this chronic undertraining. We as business owners, we very often underestimate how long it takes to take a new employee, maybe someone that doesn't have a whole bunch of experience, or maybe they do have experience, but they're not used to your company's processes and systems. And so it's, you know, what we'll see a lot of the time is someone gets hired and then they're like, okay, cool, you got a job. Yeah, no, follow this guy around for a few months. Fingers crossed you learn something. If you don't, it's probably not going to work out, but good luck. And that's the level of training that people kind of get. Not always, but I certainly see that more often than not. The other thing I think a lot of us business owners forget is that being a good trainer is a skill set in and of itself. So just because you might be very technically proficient at the trade, you know all the tips and tricks, doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at the process of sharing that information. So for me, like, I ran a painting company for many years, and I was a really, really fast painter. Could cut in windows and roll lots of siding and get like literally finished houses very, very fast. But when it came to like sharing that information with someone else, I found that really challenging. The last thing with respect to this chronic undertraining idea is this. You can Google this. Is an interesting topic in psychology. They call it the curse of knowledge, and the curse of knowledge means when you get good at something, you actually forget what it's like to not have those skills, not have those like neural pathways built into your brain. And so we tend to be quite impatient. What's very simple for us in our experience is actually totally new and foreign to this new employee. And so we really need to focus on slowing down, putting ourselves in that person's shoes, and training them at a pace and in a way that works for them. Secondly, there's a total lack of structured goal setting and review. So what we mean by that is, you know, even if you do get through a training process with a new employee, we don't often set goals. We don't establish deliverables. We're not really clear on what results we want to achieve. And then we're really frustrated when projects, you know, get executed more slowly when we expect them. And there's this disconnect between what we expect and what the team thinks is expected of them, if that makes sense. So that's really common, and we'll touch a little bit more on how to do that well near the end of this session. And then the last thing, you know, kind of sucks to say, but there's some pretty poor recruiting and hiring systems in the contracting space. It's certainly not every business, but lots of people, they're moving too quick. It's not an activity that gets enough resources or time, and so that leads to a pretty, you know, unexceptional team at times. I've done sessions with LMN on recruiting and hiring in the past, and we write those and deliver those because this is such a consistent thing that we see. So those are some really common challenges, and that's what kind of makes staff productivity difficult to manage. But in what follows, I'm hoping you pull out just some juicy nuggets that make this easier for you in your business. So as I mentioned on the agenda, the first thing we're going to talk about is this performance gap concept. So you see in quotation marks, why are you guys so slow? I don't know if you guys have found yourself in this situation, but I certainly have. You pull up to a job site, you park around the corner, you don't really give away to the team that you're there, and you just kind of watch for a few minutes, and you hold your head in your hands and you kind of rub your forehead going, oh my goodness, why? What is taking you guys so long? Somebody's, over in the corner looking at bugs. The other guy's randomly shoveling dirt into a wheelbarrow. There doesn't really seem to be any structure or plan or momentum or pace to the project. It's not a very good feeling. I've certainly been there. If that applies to you, you know how frustrating that can be. So the performance gap is just a really simple way to think about why that actually is. And as I said, most of the time, it's for one of two reasons. So it's either skill, meaning they actually don't know how to be a really good landscaper. They've not received the training or coaching yet to be fast. Or on the other end of the spectrum, they're lacking commitment. So they maybe have the technical know-how and they've got the experience, but they're not super bought in. Some days they're good and they're capable, but other days they are just like, you know what, I don't really feel like it. So if they're lacking commitment, sometimes you'll see they show up late. Their effort is really inconsistent. Their attitude might not be exactly what you want. So these are the two dimensions that we would want to apply our focus. And I like to put this on a grid. We call it the performance grid. This is an incredibly simple tool and a very easy way to think about this. You'll see going upwards on the y-axis, we've got skill, and going across on the x-axis, we have commitment. And I like to think of these people in terms of characters. So let's start with the all-star. This guy or girl is like the absolute best person on your team, and they're the best because they're highly skilled and they're deeply committed to the cause. I'm not a Patriots fan, but if you think of like Tom Brady, he would be an all-star, super committed and very good as a quarterback. So that is the goal. That's where we want to move everyone towards. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the low performer. This person, this is going back to those maybe poor recruiting practices. Not only are they not very good at landscaping, they also have kind of a crappy attitude. In my opinion, these people's days are numbered within your business, and to be honest, they're probably not worth like the effort to get them. Like, they're just too far from being an all-star. It's going to take way too much time and probably cause a whole bunch of headaches. And in my opinion, if you think, hey, does this person not have skill or commitment, I would say probably that person is not going to be with your company for a super long time. But it's these other two, the Maverick and the loyal worker, where we can actually do some work. And this is where a lot of our underperformance will fall into. So the Maverick is someone that's, as I said, really skilled, but not super committed. And the loyal worker, on the other hand, is super committed. They've got a great attitude. Their teammates love them, customer loves them, but they're kind of hopeless because their skills aren't there yet. So I'm curious if you guys, think about these sort of caricatures in your mind's eye. Who do you have on your team now that we've just broken it down into that really simple model? I think we're going to launch a poll here. Yeah, there we go. So think about, do you have all-stars? Do you have Mavericks? Do you have loyal workers? Or do you have low performers? Hopefully, we've got not too many low performers. So take a second, just answer that so I know what situation you find yourself in, and that will really help me apply this to your specific situation. We can probably close it. There we go. Mavericks. Okay, cool. Mavericks and loyal workers, no all-stars. Yeah, they're hard to find. Okay, so let's talk about this. We're going to talk about how to deal with loyal workers first. So loyal worker, what they're missing is skill. And I don't know if you guys have watched Top Gun, but we here at Breakthrough Academy love Top Gun for whatever reason. Everything is compared to, or you make analogies about, or everything is framed in terms of Top Gun. So the classic loyal worker is Goose, right? He's a team player. He's bought into the success. He cares about quality and morale. He's got the attitude you want, but he lacks the skill to complete the work on or under budget. So what does this person need? Well, they need one-on-one coaching to increase their skill. I've had a loyal worker on my team. They're actually really, really awesome. I find that they're much easier to work with than Mavericks, which are a little trickier, and we'll talk about them later. But let's talk about what to do with a loyal worker. So you guys remember one of the common challenges I mentioned is this idea of chronic undertraining. Well, one of the reasons that is not only are we low on time and maybe we don't have that much practice training, but we're often missing some really simple and easy to use training tools. One of them we call a competency model. And all a competency model is it's a really like organized and simple checklist that outlines all the things that a landscaper or a landscape technician or a foreman or a production manager, project, like whatever the role is, I've put landscaper here, but you could change that to anything. What does a landscaper need to know how to do in order to be competent in their role? So is this written down somewhere? Is it organized? Is it pulled out and referred to often? 3 questions to ask yourself. If the answer is no to any one of these, I would really encourage you to put some time and resources into your competency models. I am going to show you an example of what one looks like. So if we'll leave PowerPoint for a second. Here we go. So this would be for a foreman. Right, we've built these for many different roles, but we're just going to use the foreman role as an example today. So there's this little rubric at the top that we've got a check marks, a box, or an X, or NA for not applicable. We would use those symbols to mark off the constituent parts of this competency model. So if you look at this one here, we're going through a deficiency check. If I know that this person I've seen this person do all these things, I would check off that they've done them. If I've observed them and they're doing it part way, I may put a box around it and say that they've only partially completed it, but they need to keep working on it. And so what this is designed to do is it's a training tool. It's something that you would print off, you would have it on a clipboard, and you would watch your people work with this in front of you so that you can start to see where they're actually slow and what they need to work on to get faster. This may seem like a simple thing, and you might be thinking, oh, I know it all in my head. I watch them and I just give them feedback, but it's actually, you're probably missing stuff. There's a lot of little bits and pieces on this list, right? And I always challenge people, like, don't assume that you know all of the stuff in your head. If you're just watching them and sort of informally giving feedback, I can virtually guarantee you're missing the devil in the details, and there's very, very small, intricate parts of their skill that's actually what's holding them back. So you're giving them very general advice, like, hey, I need you to try harder and use this tool, not that tool, when really what they need is much more specific feedback. So that's the power in having these. For the learner, it gives them a framework and it shows them sort of how wide and how big their role is, and they can start to see their own progress towards it. So it's a much more motivating and a much simpler, cleaner process for your, in this case, foreman, but you could make one of these for any person in your business. So I'm going to, in the downloads, we'll send you this competency model to use kind of as an example, as a reference. But I'd really encourage you to use this template, which is more of a fill in the blanks version, and you can make this for any role that you want. We could say technician or production manager, whatever you want to make, and then you would go in and actually fill in the skills and tasks and make your own little competency model for your role. So really simple tool, but they're really impactful, again, because of the feedback it allows you to give and the ease of use for the learner. So I strongly, strongly encourage the creation and use of comp models. Now, how do we actually apply this? Well, if you've got a loyal worker and you've identified them as that, put together a bit of a like a 30-day training plan. And what I would encourage you to do is spend 2 hours a week with your loyal workers, ideally in like 2 different chunks. If you can only do 1 2-hour block, that's totally fine. But if you can do 2 1-hour blocks, maybe on a Tuesday and a Thursday, so there's sort of practice time in between, and they've got space to absorb the information that you give them, I would really encourage that. This can be done by the owner, or if you're in a bigger business and you've got lots of foremans or production managers, like there's different there's middle management. This could be done by someone else that's not the owner, as long as they're really experienced and they've got the personality to be a trainer. They're patient, they're strong communicators, they're good at making complex ideas very simple, that kind of stuff. Have the comp model in front of you, watch them work, and compare their activities, their actions to the comp model. I promise you, you will see very, very quickly that it's small technical things that they need to work on, because we know their efforts there. It's just like, hey, the way that you're holding this tool is actually slowing you down. You're using this piece of equipment incorrectly. The way that you're planning out, this section of the project is not good. So that's why we do this. I can pretty much guarantee you do 2 hours a week for 4 weeks. Your loyal workers will be star performers. What is this bullet at the bottom? Doragi, what the heck is that? It's kind of weird, kind of random. I think we talked about Doragi in some of the articles that we used to promote this webinar leading into it. I want to break it down. It's an acronym, and it's a way to think about your training process. Okay, so what does it stand for? The D is for demonstrate. So if you're training someone, and it doesn't matter what the task is, it could be it could be office or administrative related, it could be a sales thing, it could be a job site thing. Doesn't matter. This is very universal. What you want to do first is demonstrate to them. So I ran a painting company. When I would train my painters, I would first show them how to like cut in a window with a paintbrush, and then I would hand over the brush and I would observe them do it. And they'd try, they'd make a few mistakes. They're holding the tool wrong. They're not moving fast enough. They've got their eye on the wrong line. There'd be all sorts of things that I can see in my experience that they're not doing properly. I would then re-demonstrate and I'd give them feedback, and I'd say, hey, when you were doing it, you missed this. Make sure you focus on that next time. And they get another opportunity to learn, so that we re-demonstrate. The A and the G stand for assign a goal. So once you've shown them sort of the basics, you say, look, I've got these, I've got these 4 windows for you to paint. I want you to get it done in an hour. Or I've got, I want you to dig these 4 holes or plant, these 6 plants. Whatever it is, you would set them up with a very clear goal with a start and a finish, and kind of let them rip. At the end, you come back at that when the time frame's over, and you say, okay, let's inspect the work, see if it's good, if there's any quality issues. And this little process is something you start and repeat and do over and over and over. So if you've not written that down, I'd really encourage you to do that. Doragi, demonstrate, observe, re-demonstrate, assign a goal, and inspect. Really simple way to think about training. So that's it for the loyal workers. Just a couple quick hits on how to improve skill. Now, increasing commitment, this is a bit trickier, but it's really important, and I think the opportunities on the other side of this are huge, because you've got someone that's really, really skilled. Here's Maverick from Top Gun. What do we know about him? Well, he's super skilled and experienced. He knows the tricks of the trade, but he's a bit arrogant. He's a bit cocky. His ego kind of gets in the way. He can do work very quickly and efficiently. He's often like faster than his teammates because of talent or experience or technical knowledge. But this attitude thing is a problem. So while he's really good, maybe he alienates his teammates, maybe he kind of bothers people and rubs them the wrong way. And what this person needs is probably not what you're expecting. So I noticed a bunch of you answer on the poll that you guys have Mavericks. Listen really closely to this. 9 times out of 10, your Maverick has unresolved conflict. They're frustrated, they're upset about something. You don't know what yet, but there's a critical conversation that needs to be had with this person that gets them realigned, refocused, bought into the mission again, and moves them into that star performer category. So let's talk a little bit about healthy conflict for a second. These are these conversations we all avoid. Nobody likes them, myself included. They're tough. They kind of make you feel squirmy, but when you get them done, you feel awesome. And it usually leads to a huge increase in results, like very shortly after. So let's talk about healthy conflict for a second. The first thing that you need to do if you want to have one of these conversations with your Maverick is set up a safe space. Do not try to do this on the job site or after work when they're tired. Invite them out to lunch or say, hey, can we, let's go grab a beer, after work tonight. I want to talk to you about a few things. Get it away from the place where they do their job for a couple reasons. Energetically, it's good to just be in a separate space. It's a different environment. There's some good psychology around that. Number two, if it's close to the job site, some of the conflict that needs to be had could be about their coworkers or the customer that they're working for, the manager that they're working under. So you want to pull them away from that so they feel really comfortable speaking their mind. So that's number one. That's maybe not number one. That's like the context that you need to set here. You need to create this safe space for them. Once you're at this lunch or the meal or you go for a hike, whatever it is, the first thing that you want to do is inquire. Be curious and assume nothing. You probably, in your mind, maybe you're making an idea or have some assumptions around what they're upset about. Drop all of that in the door and talk to them as if you're like hearing from them for the first time. And so what inquiry can sound like would be this. Let's say your Maverick's name is Tom. Hey Tom, I wanted to grab a lunch with you, chat about a few things. The last month or so, I've noticed that you're not moving as quickly, you're not completing jobs as high quality or as efficiently as you once were. I know that you're super capable. You've got lots of natural talent, tons of experience. That's why we hired you. I've seen you do some incredible work in the past, and I just wanted to check in, see like what's going on for you. Is there anything that you're not really happy with? How can we get you back to that place before? So it's just like, what's going on? Open-ended question, and then you shut up and you listen. Be a good active listener. And this is where the acknowledgement step comes in. So they're going to now talk. Hopefully, if you've created a nice space, you've asked a nice question, and they trust you, they're going to talk through this. They'll say, look, I'm kind of frustrated right now. I'm working with a couple really inexperienced guys. They're really slow. They ask tons of questions. I just want to get my work done and pump through this job, but I feel like I'm always, picking up after them, and it's a super demotivating thing for me. And yeah, we started out really good, but it's been months of this, and I'm just frustrated. And they'll go into detail and give you the nuance and the color, and you sit back, you listen, be a good listener, ask lots of questions, say back to them what you've heard. So a really common active listening practice is to say, okay, Tom, cool. What I'm hearing right now, I want to make sure I've got this right. It sounds like you're kind of frustrated with the team that you've been paired with. You feel like if you're with a couple other people, you guys could get way more work done, be producing more, and as a result, earning more money. Am I getting that right? Yes, that is what I'm frustrated about. I've kind of made up that example just to give that to you, but don't assume that it's that. It could literally be anything. So that's the acknowledgement stage. What you will find about, if you've not learned this already, you probably have found this. When you are a really good listener for someone, people relax. They feel heard, they feel seen, they feel understood, and you have an opportunity now for advocacy. Advocacy is where it's your turn, and you need to clearly articulate your view and what you need from them, right? And it could be, Tom, I totally get it. I see now why that's really frustrating. And I'm sorry that that's been the experience so far. However, we have hired you to perform a certain role. You do have a certain set of expectations and deliverables that we want you to achieve. And we can talk about creative problem solving and figuring out a way to have you be in a better place. But can you commit to us that this is something you're willing to work on? So this is where you're advocating your view and kind of standing up for yourself. So it's not just like listening and saying, yeah, no, I get it. This does really suck. You're totally right about everything. You need to kind of push back. This is where it's a bit of a negotiation. And then you get into the last stage, which is problem solving. So, in my example, I used, they're frustrated about maybe the inexperienced team that they've been paired with. You could get into some creative problem solving. Hey, you know what, Tom, we paired you with those people because your experience, we thought that you could teach a bunch of the stuff that you know to them, and we still want that, but maybe having 2 or 3 inexperienced people on your crew is too much. What if we move 1 or 2 of them to another crew? You can take this one person under your wing, and we'll put in a couple more experienced people on your crew so that would you be happy with that? Just as an example. So you're problem solving, you're coming up with a solution that works for both of you guys. Inquiry, acknowledgement, advocacy, problem solving. If you have a Maverick and you need to have a conflict conversation, write these 4 points down and just try to follow them, because when you get into it, emotions come up, they get to be a little bit more intense, and I love to have a fallback plan, or just a very structured 1, 2, 3, 4 step type thing. So that's healthy conflict. This by no means makes it easy. I'm not guaranteeing that all of a sudden these are going to be fun, exciting conversations for you, but they're 100% necessary, and you know it. So just use this as a way to structure them for yourself. Now, in this whole advocacy, problem solving stage, there needs to be something we call a realignment conversation. So once the conflict has been had, you get this feeling of clean air again, you're kind of on the same page, you can start to reintroduce the expectations that were set with them when you hired them or at the start of the season. So we would reintroduce their employment agreement, and I would say, hey, this is the contract or the document or the agreement that we had you sign off on when you started here. These are the accountabilities that we expect you to perform. I'll show you another example of what one of these can look like. Here is that same, we showed a competency model for this person. Here's the employment agreement, so a different document. This is more about expectations. We've got our company values, right? So it'd be a good chance to go over those again. We've got the deliverables, like these are the results that we need you to achieve. And then you really want to focus on the accountabilities, because these are the areas where Mavericks love to just kind of ignore them. They think they're too good for it, right? So, hey, we need you to take ownership of the book projects from the production manager with extreme clarity and arrange them into production for efficient and profitable completion. Can you do that? Cool. And you would go bullet point by bullet point, go through this, make sure that they've had their questions answered, and just ensure that there's a ton of clarity around what you expect from them. What do you think would happen if you just jam this down their throat without having a conflict conversation? They'd tell you to screw off, and they'd probably quit. And I've made that mistake before. I had a guy working for me for a couple years. He was so fast. He was a really good athlete. He was an unbelievable painter, but he was kind of a jerk. And one time I just hey man, this is what I hired you for. Can you do this or not? And he said, you know what? Up yours. I'm out of here. Really burned me in hindsight. I really wish I'd had a good, healthy conflict conversation first, because that would have given created an environment where he's more open to hearing this stuff. So these realignment conversations are what happen after the conflict has been had. I talked a minute ago about at the beginning this idea of structured goal setting and review, and that being an area that can really be lacking in a lot of landscaping companies. And so we call it GSR. A GSR meeting, it's a management tool, and it's a one-on-one meeting between the owner not necessarily the owner, but it's like a manager and a leader, and then the person below them, if you want to look at it hierarchically. So, a production manager could have a GSR meeting with his foreman, an owner could have a GSR meeting with his production manager, his office manager, or whoever reports to him. And we have a whole separate tool and dashboard for this that I won't get into today, because that's a whole other session that we give. But what I want you to see here is that often what's missing with your Mavericks and what they want and need is a little bit more one-on-one attention from the owner or the leader that they follow. They've got an ego, right? And that ego does need to be stroked a little bit. And what that can look like is just a closer relationship with their higher up. So I would encourage you to, once you've had that conflict conversation, you've reintroduced the employment agreement, set up like a regular cadence with your Maverick to keep a pulse on what's happening with them, hold accountability to the stuff that you've gone over, make sure that the results are there, provide direction and support, and manage performance. This is probably the most important piece. If you have someone that's a Maverick, they'll never tell this to you because it's just not in their personality, but what they want is a little more of you. And so if you can set that up, I would say 30 minutes a week or even every 2 weeks is probably enough. It's going to be a huge piece for them. So that's how you deal with Mavericks. Again, no guarantee that it's going to be easy, but that gives you some stuff to think about and a bit of a structure to follow. That would probably be a good point to check in. Do we have any questions or anything, Dave? Release? Are we doing okay with that? Or let me check the
Hi,
chat
Benji.
box. Hey.
Just jumping in here. One question that came up near the start, which is how often are you kind of managing this exercise, right? So is this something where as the owner operator or maybe the foreman, you're looking at this every week, once a month, just when we finish projects? What does your check-in cycle look like for the team members today?
Well, that's a really good question, and there isn't a set calendar for this. I would say that when you do this is when you notice that it needs to happen. So it's not like you have to take out your performance grid and apply it to your team every week. But when you start to notice, jobs are lagging and quality slipping and attitudes are shifting and people are getting tired, you can feel that the business machine that you built isn't churning along the way that you want it to. That is an indicator that some of this stuff needs to be done rather than sort of a pre-scheduled time frame. So it's much more by feel than it is a rigorous agenda for this, if that makes sense, Dave.
Yep, that's great. And then one more, which is the primary focus of the presentation seemed to be, geared towards that one-to-one, right? Where,
Yeah.
You take the conversation off-site, it's over lunch. What are your thoughts, Benji, with respect to making others aware that, hey, we're going to do this as a team, but that there's a couple of team members that we're trying to pick up here, and we're trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. What's your thought on involving others in that coaching, that feedback, that awareness piece, just so that it's not the owner and one employee, or it's not just the foreman and one team member?
Right. Okay. So I have kind of a two-part answer for that. I think for the loyal worker type who needs to work on his skill, it would make sense to involve the rest of your team, in a delicate way. Say, hey, we're working on these 3 specific things with the loyal worker. If you guys can really help, like coach him on that, give him feedback and support, that would go a really, really long way in helping him. That would be a good way to help your team support that person, and be delicate. Don't say, hey, this person sucks, make sure they're faster by the end of next week. Help them help you, I guess, is what I'm saying. So for the loyal worker, I think it makes sense to involve the team. I think for the Maverick, a lot of this stuff is actually one-on-one, and I would not go and say, hey, I'm gonna go have a lunch with this person because their attitude sucks. Make sure that their attitude's good when he gets back. I wouldn't do that. I may let a few people on the team know. I may let like the foreman know, or someone that works really, really closely with this person after the conversation's been had and we've had that realignment chat and we've set up the GSR structure. I may inform them, but this one I would treat a little bit more delicately, and certainly early on, probably just keep it between me and that specific Maverick.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
Cool. Thank you for those. So, and guys, if there's more questions, we've got time. Please do fire them away. I'm happy to answer them. So, I want to start to tie this, what we've talked about, into kind of the bigger business organization. We've talked today about how to increase staff productivity, but that is certainly not the only thing that a business needs. It's a very important part, but there's lots of other stuff, right? There's the way that we set goals as a business and how we track our financials and plan our cash flow, for example. There's the organizational structure, which is like, what is everyone's role? Are those roles distinct from each other? Do we have clear job descriptions and employment agreements and deliverables that help our team know what's expected from them? There's our recruiting and interviewing systems. There's the training systems that our company has, like those competency models, and eventually you can build those into standard operating procedures. There's a lot of different systems that go into the infrastructure that a company needs to grow. LMN, for example, is another great example. You probably need like very, very good technological solutions that allow the running of your company to be done with a lot more ease, using software, as an example. So when I say one cog in a larger machine, increasing staff productivity is literally that. It's one piece of a much larger system. And so that's kind of what BTA exists to help implement for business owners. And so we have a very, very cool platform, and a simple way to describe it is with this idea of the 3 C's: content, coaching, community. The content part of BTA is we have built kind of a business in a box. So I showed you an example of an employment agreement and a job site checklist to train people off of that we call a comp model. These are just very small examples of a much larger library that we've built with thousands of systems like that, whether we're talking about spreadsheets in Excel or simple PDFs or Word documents that you can customize, or we also have a massive how-to library that describes how to do all this stuff. There's a whole bunch of content that we've made that makes implementation really easy, and that's stuff that you get access to when we start working together. Now that would be cool, but that's not nearly close to the end of it, because what goes hand in hand with that is coaching. And so what happens with BTA is you get paired up with a coach. They get to know you very well. We set super clear goals as a company. This is where we want to be in a year. These are the initiatives. This is what we're going to implement. And it's their job to week in, week out, support you, guide you, hold you accountable to the process. So, this accountability theme comes up a lot. Business owners all the time in my assessments go, I need accountability, right? Like, I don't have a boss. I started the business. Nobody's checking in on my work. And it's actually, I thought it was cool at first, but I do need some level of structure and guidance, and someone to kind of hold my feet to the fire at times. And so the coaching part of this is massive. The last piece is community, which I think is my favorite part, because that's sort of my job, is to build this. We've got, as I said, 315 contractors from all over North America. Everyone is very like-minded, very values-based. They're growing their companies quickly and intelligently using systems. And our belief is that it's more fun and easier to do that stuff together rather than trying to figure out everything by yourself. So if you've ever felt kind of alone, you're like, man, nobody gets what it's like to run a landscaping company. We do, and there's another 300 or so people that get it intimately. We drive some pretty impressive results. So this isn't just for fun. We obviously want to see businesses grow, and luckily we do. So we track our members' success like a hawk. After about 12 months in the program, we see an average increase of 28%. That's in revenue. and then 41% in net profit. So these systems, this accountability, the coaching, the oversight, the community, all of that stuff does lead to some pretty cool stuff. And the part that I get excited about is the business owners are working less. They feel like they have more control. And they're getting closer to kind of the business that they wanted to run. I want to do a transfer out with you guys here, and I want to get you these resources as well as give you an opportunity to sign up for a strategy session, which I'll talk about in a sec here. But quickly answer this poll for me. What were your biggest takeaways from today? I like getting this feedback because we make tweaks to these sessions all the time based on what you guys like or don't like. And so just let me know what some of the big pieces that really clicked for you were, those gold nuggets that I mentioned at the beginning. If you guys want to answer that poll, that would be awesome. So let's get you some resources as well. There's two things that we're going to make available here. And so one of them is obviously like the competency model, the template, the employment agreement. There were 3 or 4 things I kind of pulled out of a hat during this presentation that are yours for free. And what you're going to go to is a website called www.btacademy.com/strategy session. Enter the download code LMN0611, and it's going to take you to something that looks like this. Now, you can see the second question is, do you want to schedule a strategy session? And what that is it's a 30-minute call with me. This webinar has been very like one directional. I've been talking to you guys, but I've not heard, it's just the structure of a webinar. I don't have an opportunity really to hear from you, listen to your to what's going on in your company, and I would actually love to do that. So if this stuff really spoke to you, if you've got a Maverick and you want to just chat through what the best way to have a conversation with him is, or you're working with some loyal workers and you want some tips on how to train them, I would absolutely love to hop on a phone call or a Zoom call with you outside of this webinar and have a bit of a chat. Now, like Breakthrough Academy, our whole system and our program is most appropriate for businesses above $750,000 in annual revenue. So if you're below that, there's a whole bunch of other resources that we will make available besides the strategy session. There's an awesome Facebook group with over 1,000 contractors in there sharing content and ideas. There's the resources that we're going to send. That's what we'll make available. But if you're above $750,000 a year, you're working on this stuff a lot, and you want to chat a bit more with me about that, please do hit yes and schedule yourself a strategy session. It will allow you. It will take you right to a booking page that has access to my calendar, and you can just schedule something at your earliest convenience. So it's www.btacademy.com/strategy session. And what that looks like again is this. And you would go in and put in the download code LMN0611. Fill out the type form. Do you want to schedule a strategy session? Yes. It'll just take you through a few questions. Probably take 30 seconds to fill out. So I'm going to stay on the line here for a few minutes while you guys do that to see if there's any questions. But otherwise, thanks a lot for having me.
That's outstanding. Benji, thank you so much for your time today. There's no other questions. We are at time, so I'm just going to close this out by thanking you again. Really informative session, and I hope that all of those audience members from today are able to leverage and really take advantage of that half an hour session with you. I know every engagement that we've had with the team at BTA, in addition to what all of our clients are saying, they're very, 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 very valuable. Lots of insight gained, but in that practical delivery of here's what we should be doing now to retool our business. So thanks again, Benji. One slide to finish us up. LMN Academy. We have poured all of our resources into this online forum. From an education perspective, there's no better place right now at LMN to learn about budgeting and scheduling and estimating and building out the key pillars in your business. All of our virtual workshops moved online for greater access. Our support team from industry, the best at what they do, helping landscape and snow removal companies each and every day with their numbers. And webinars like this, where we get the fortunate opportunity to listen and learn and be educated from Benji and his team at BTA. So we're really fortunate to have you as a trusted partner. Thanks to everybody who attended. We hope that June is extremely successful for you. And I know by applying a number of the topics and items that Benji had shared today, things are going to go well in your one-to-ones and your coaching. But reach out, let's sign up for those 30-minute sessions, and let's make it even more power-packed summer from the standpoint of growth and development inside your company. So thanks for attending. Thanks again, Benji. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Cheers.
Thanks, Dave. Talk to you guys later.